welcome to... Whoa, that's weird.
I
The line in the background goes right between us, so it looks like it's a split
We're
screen.
in a different rundown, shitty subway stop.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, everyone. To those of you listening to the podcast, the background is a shitty subway stop.
It's
just to
actually
try
kind
and
of
clarify
beautiful.
what's going on. It's the Empire in Decline is a beauty. It's just a beauty. She's a beaut, Clark.
Like, I wouldn't want to live in this rundown subway stop, but it's nice to look at. I feel that way about a lot of the U.S. It's nice to look at.
It's nice to look at. That's why we need some bullet trains, because you need to go buy it faster. We need to speed by more quickly. Welcome, everybody. I am joined today by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield. And if she stopped finding that annoying, I would stop saying it. But instead, it's fun. Hello, everyone.
I'm trying to bring joy into your life because I know that you find it enjoyable to annoy me. I had an older brother. I know how this works.
So we got a lot of important stories for you today, and yeah, we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna try that. I feel like I said at the beginning of every show.
Do you ever slowly wait?
I know. We're gonna take it slow today, folks, and I'm gonna put my left pinky toe in this next story.
Ew,
I'm not sure what that would look like.
That sounds inappropriate. I don't know why, but it does.
Is it the left pinky toe that give you a problem, or
I think it's just pinky toe.
Anyone saying pinky toe?
Yeah.
Sheesh. It's hard times for those Etsy stores that sell the little foot gloves that like each toe is. Because
those, is there a reason for those? Those had like a
0.
Okay.
All right. So for once, this may be the first time in the history of the show, I'm going to start off by not talking about Israel. we'll be getting to some important stories.
Don't worry, we will talk about Israel.
We're getting to some important stories about Israel's ongoing genocide, but let's start off with the fact that the church in Los Angeles,
the Catholic
Church, has admitted, I'll tell you why the headline says a different number than I'm going to say, but has admitted to assaulting over 1,300 children, and they're paying out $1.5 billion. The reason the headline says $880 million is because this is the second payment,
installment,
the second tranche of their paying off their victims. And when you add up the $880 million with the over $700 million, you get $1.5 billion from the church. Keep in mind, that is just Los Angeles. That is just those who came forward. And that's just probably the past 30 years. It is unfathomable the number of people who have been, and mainly children, who have been assaulted by the church, by the Catholic Church across the country. Across the fucking country.
Across the world, really.
Across the world. And this is not the first of these. I used to talk about one that happened in Pennsylvania. A grand jury in Pennsylvania found that there were over 1,000 victims in the state of Pennsylvania. And that, again, was one state, and it's just the victims who come forward. And my point, I know I've brought this up before, is how many children do you have to assault before an organization gets shut down? Because it seems to me like if it weren't a religion, like if it were an Arby's that had assaulted 1,300 kids, I feel like we'd probably say Arby's is done.
I mean, Arby's should be shut down for assaulting people's lower intestines, but that's a different story.
Different story, yes.
You have a good joke about this, and I'm not going to try to retell it because that would be embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I've known about. I feel like I've known about this since I was a kid. Like, you'd hear stories about this kind of abuse in the Catholic Church, and I was just like, what? Why are people Catholic? Like, or if you're Catholic, then why do you ever go to church? Why would you ever allow your children to go to church? I mean, this is, I lack words to appropriately encapsulate my feelings about this, but I think your joke was very good. Like if you have a kid and they're choosing between going through a heroin alley or through a Catholic church to get to school.
You did butcher that.
No.
Well, you didn't set it up.
Heroin alley is my. That's
heroin alley. Heroin alley is a weird term, but on top of that, you didn't give the setup that the kid was walking to school. You just said if he's choosing between a heroin alley and a church. What? Anyway,
kids need choices.
We won't butcher the joke except to say it was saying, how are there not at least PSAs saying, hey, parents, statistically speaking, the least safe place for your child in the entire city is the church. Like, why are there no chains on the doors? It's bizarre to me.
I also find it funny. Apologies about the joke butchering. I realize heroin alley is what we used to call the alleyway that went from the parking lot to the front door of the studio that I used to work at. Sorry. So I'm conflating a lot of things in my head. It's messy in there. Anyway, it's dark in here and we may die. I find it funny that like so many people will talk about Christianity, and I get that there are different sects or whatever, but we'll talk about Christianity as like this religion of love and Islam as this religion of hate. And I'm just over here trying to figure out who's responsible for more death and more destruction of people's lives vis-a-vis abuse and things like that. It really seems like the Catholic Church is winning that one. Not that anybody wants to win that, although the Catholic Church seems to want to. But I mean, if you look historically at Islam, and of course, if you look at the advent of extremism, it aligns very well with colonialism as like a response to colonialism. But that's a separate story. But we have this vision of Islam as like this evil religion and Christianity as a good one. And yet this is what happens in these spaces. And
Fatma in the chat said that there are evil people in all religions. And I think that's definitely true. There are certain people that are evil. There are also certain people that are evil outside of religion. But I think that the Catholic Church has set up a system, and there's some of this goes on in other churches, some of this goes on in synagogues, but the Catholic Church has set up a system where this has become so common and so prevalent. And the people that are caught are not drummed out. They are usually moved around they're protected. They're moved around to different churches, etc. And maybe some of that's gotten a little better in the past couple of decades, but not enough. And so that's what's different. Yes, there are evil people all over the place, and there are perverts, and there are pedophiles, and but there's a system here that protects them, and that allows it and protects it in a different way than just there are some evil people.
It's systemic and it's systematic, is what this abuse is, and yeah, I think, and this is not to say that like I think that Islam is a perfect religion or Judaism is a perfect religion. I don't think religion in general is perfect in any way. And I think that it's really, really dark in a lot of ways. My point is more that we are taught about Christianity in the US as this beautiful religion, and that, these different offshoots, they have like some misunderstandings or they believe different things, but they're all inherently good. But Islam, oh boy, that's dark. And if you really look at the history of Islam in particular, we owe so much knowledge and beautiful art and poetry and culture to Islam. And so I think it's interesting to me to see how things are talked about in that propagandization as a quote unquote Christian nation, separation of church and state not being a thing that we do.
I probably should have read this at the beginning of the story, but the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, the nation's largest, has agreed to pay $880 million on top of the other payouts to 1,353 people who say they were sexually abused as children by Catholic clergy. This brings the total to $1.5 billion. Archbishop Jose Gomez said in a statement, "My hope is that this settlement will provide some measure of healing for what these men and women have suffered. I'm sure it will heal them completely. There are a lot more dominoes in California to come down." He said, this is someone else speaking now, not him.
Oh, I was like, damn, okay.
There are a lot more dominoes in California to come down, he said, referring to other dioceses that have not reached settlements or protected themselves by filing for bankruptcy. Yeah, many of these places, including the Boy Scouts, have tried to protect themselves by filing for bankruptcy and basically saying, oh, we don't have the money to pay off our victims. That's what the Boy Scouts did. And yet these things keep going on. The Boy Scouts also had thousands of various abuses and accusations over the years, and yet still operating. Not even a little. I think they need a little sticker on the pamphlet that says, oh, yeah, your kid might be scarred for life. Just be ready.
But they'll also learn how to whittle. So, but I think the other something that this speaks to is how little we value children in our society, right? People are supposed to be broodmares for the state, but we don't give a damn about children. Having traveled and having lived in other parts of the world, I can say that the US is by far the most child unfriendly place that I've lived and visited. People look at, and I'm not just talking about like crying babies on planes. I mean, like generally.
I mean, those should be beaten. But other than
that, generally people look at you like you have shat in their lap when you walk in with a kid into like any establishment, whether that be like a restaurant or what have you. And I think that speaks like we don't want kids to be around. We don't care what happens to them. We don't care if they're hungry. We don't care if they're abused. We don't care if they're homeless. We don't care, if they're learning anything. So this is horrific, but it's also not surprising in a system, in a country that doesn't care about children. And that is evidenced by the policies that we have and just the reactions and the kind of like the status quo of how people react and are around children.
Good points. All right, I'm going to move on now to Israel's genocide, because it is one of the
most... Did you enjoy your reprieve, everyone? You're welcome.
Yeah, that was the kids being assaulted in California was the reprieve from genocide. But so yesterday I brought to you guys the story that's obviously in the mainstream media as well, about the killing of Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas. And anyway, I just wanted to bring to you today that Joe Biden put out a statement talking about what a wonderful day it was for the world. But kind of the most amazing thing in the statement, you got to remember before I say this, that the U.S. has said about this genocide, although we ship weapons and bombs to rain down on these children every 36 hours, the U.S. government has tried to claim, well, but it's not us doing it, right? It's Israel. We don't have boots on the ground. They love that phrase. We're not really a part of this. And I have brought to you many times that, in fact, there's articles showing the CIA has been helping Israel assassinate people, and the U.S. has been giving aerial surveillance of Gaza to give to Israel, etc. So I've brought to you that it's not true, but here's Joe Biden finally admitting that basically what those of us in independent media have been saying for a while is true, and he's bragging about it. Shortly after the October 7th massacres, I directed special operations personnel and our intelligence professionals, CIA, to work side by side with their Israeli counterparts to help locate and track Sinwar and other Hamas leaders hiding in Gaza. With our intelligence help, the IDF relentlessly pursued Hamas's leaders, flushing them out of their hiding places and forcing them onto the run. He
wasn't hiding.
So, well, there's two things. One is Biden's trying to take credit for something that had nothing to do with him, but that's kind of a side note. Sinwar was not killed out of some intelligence asset bullshit. They actually didn't know they had him. They were just in a firefight in South Gaza and killed him. They didn't know it was him until they saw the body. So bullshit. But on top of that, really the more important thing is here's Biden bragging about the fact that the U.S. is part of this war, genocide, whatever you want to call it, while the U.S. has been claiming we are not part of it.
Yeah, well, and there are pictures. I saw pictures on Twitter of U.S. soldiers taking selfies with Netanyahu, and U.S. soldiers having their picture taken by Israelis, proud to be boots on the ground in Israel to help perpetuate this genocide. So there's I mean, there's photographic evidence, and now, Biden's saying the quiet part loud, although obviously it's not Biden writing this, but um yeah, I mean, this has been clear from the very outset when when US intelligence was part of the response on October 7th. I mean, the US is so intertwined. I mean, the US Israel's a US colony. So the idea that the US wouldn't know what Israel's doing or wouldn't be a part of it is absurd.
Yeah. It's interesting how a lot of these things they deny for a year, and now they just admit it. In fact, they're trying to brag about it. And yet again, those of us in the independent media are proven right. And as we say it again and again and again, this is a U.S. genocide as well. And I just want to bring you a poll I threw to you guys on my YouTube community page. Will it matter that the head of Hamas has been killed in Gaza? Will Israel stop their genocide now?
God.
Shocker, but 99% of you say no.
Who's the 1% that thought yes?
I mean,
are they just hopeless romantics?
There was some like mainstream media that was trying to claim
that's really cute
that now is a good time to let Israel know they've achieved what they need to achieve and they can end this and blah blah blah, and okay, time to stop the genocide. But instead, absolutely not. In fact, Netanyahu put out a statement that said it will not stop. I mean, of course it's not going to stop. Netanyahu, this had nothing to do with October 7th, really. Netanyahu had been hoping for this for a long time.
And he also said multiple times that it doesn't matter if the hostages are released. We're going to keep doing this. So it's like, it has nothing to do with hostages. It really has nothing to do with Hamas. They wanted this to happen. They've wanted this for a long time. And they're not going to let up now just because he was killed. Also because they know that Hamas does not, yes, Hamas had a leader, but the idea that Hamas would crumble as an institution because of this death is, they also know that that's not true.
Yeah. And of course, a new leader will take the position, and it's just stupid. And of course, the way that Israel's behaving is not that they're just going after the Hamas leaders. No, they're killing everyone. They're just obliterating everybody. It's straight up genocide. As we've made clear many times on the show, if any of you want to partake in the polls and things I post to the YouTube community page, that's youtube.com/moment of clarity. And you can click subscribe there and be a part of that. Okay. Let's get to Arundhati Roy and what she had to say.
Yeah. So if you don't know who Arundhati Roy is, you're missing out. She is an amazing writer, and I highly recommend like all of her books. But she just recently won the Pen Pincher Prize. God, say that 10 times fast. The Pen Pincher Prize.
The Pen Pincher Prize of plosives that we say into the microphone.
And she was awarded this prize along with Ala Abd El Fattah, who is an Egyptian writer and who was not able to be there because he's imprisoned in Egypt for, telling the truth. But
in Egypt, I just want to stress that.
Yes, I said in Egypt.
No, I know you did, but
okay.
I think we've been talking so much about Israel, people probably assumed it was Israel.
But so she had an acceptance speech, as people do when they win these kind of prizes, and well, she talked about Israel, but then she also and talked about the genocide and how atrocious it is, and the horrific war crimes of the Israeli military. But then she said something that, and like there was people could be like a little bit on board with that and whatnot, but wait, it gets better. So and this is a quote, "So this is the part in my speech where I'm expected to equivocate to protect myself, my neutrality, my intellectual standing. This is the part where I am meant to lapse into moral equivalence and condemn Hamas, the other militant groups in Gaza and their ally Hezbollah in Lebanon for killing civilians and taking people hostage. and to condemn the people of Gaza who celebrated the Hamas attack. Once that's done, it all becomes easy, doesn't it? Ah, well, everybody's terrible. What can one do? Let's go shopping instead. I refuse to play the condemnation game. Let me make myself clear. I do not tell oppressed people how to resist their oppression or who their allies should be. That's damn good. Can I just...
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And
I'm sure this organization, probably some of them probably liked it, and some of them were probably horrified.
The response to that part of the speech, by people. I mean, I saw it by people who were like, "Thank you, Arundhati Roy," but a lot of people were like, "This was absolutely unacceptable." You have to condemn Hamas, like that whole spiel that we've been hearing, not even just since October 7th. Like, people have been asked to condemn Hamas since Hamas started in the 80s. So I love that. And I wanted to, and this shows you the kind of writer that she is. So yes, go read her stuff if you haven't already. But I love this because I feel like this is a beautiful response. And we've talked about like how people can respond to this question, but I feel like that's a beautiful response. And it cuts off this kind of like, but do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? And I think that this is a perfect response. It's not for me to condemn any oppressed people's reaction to their oppression. And it also, to me, as somebody who lives in the United States, makes me think about our tactics and how we look at organizing and how we're taught, oh, you have to condemn these kind of tactics. You have to condemn any like whether that be the underground or the Black Panthers or the American Indian movement. Oh, we have to condemn any tactics that are violent, even if that violence is directed towards inanimate objects, i.e. property destruction. We have to condemn that, we should be marching on the sidewalk saying whose streets are streets while we're on the sidewalk. So I think like this also makes one think about how we're programmed to think about various tactics of the oppressed. So I just wanted to share that because I think it was a beautiful thing, a beautiful way of phrasing it.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing more and more of this, like people with big platforms that are given awards, using those platforms to speak out against this, because it's gotten to like a tipping point where it's like, and I'm not saying this for her, but for some of these people where it's like, this may hurt my career, but what else can I fucking do? Like, I can't get up here and accept the Golden Globe or whatever the shit without saying something. So, and I'm not saying that's always the case, but we're seeing it more and more. It's just past a tipping point.
And she also talks about how the argument that like, oh, you wouldn't fare well under Hamas, and she responds to that too. She says, quote, I am acutely aware that being the writer that I am, the non-Muslim that I am, and the woman that I am, it would be very difficult, perhaps impossible, for me to survive very long under the rule of the Iranian regime or Hezbollah or even Hamas. But that is not the point here. The point is to educate ourselves about the history and the circumstances under which they came to exist. The point is that right now they are fighting against an ongoing genocide. The point is to ask ourselves whether a liberal, secular fighting force can go up against a genocidal war machine. Because when all the powers of the world are against them, who do they have to turn to but God? So again, I think she puts very succinctly things that I feel like it would take me like 4 pages to write. Because I feel like that's also the argument. And I've seen this, if you were a queer person in Gaza, you'd be, stoned to death or whatever. And it's like, what would happen if you were a queer person in Gaza right now? You'd be starving to death and you'd be bombed.
You might be dead right now. Israel might have killed you.
Israel might have killed you. So like, this is not a conversation that even makes sense at this particular point in time. And it's not about like whether you, given the chance, would vote to have them as your government, just like I would not vote to have the government that I have now, and I didn't. So the point is to uplift these questions as ludicrous and as absurd, and as the framing of these questions to be part of the propagandization of colonialism.
Well said. And speaking of suppressed and imprisoned writers, like the one who couldn't attend the awards there that Arundhati Roy was at, this just happened yesterday, or the day before. A writer, editor for Electronic Intifada, another UK journalist, had police raid their home and seize all their devices. Electronic Intifada does great work if you don't know them.
Do.
British counterterrorism police on Thursday raided the home and seized several electronic devices belonging to Electronic Intifada's associate editor, Asa Winstanley. Approximately 10 officers arrived before 6 a.m. and served the journalist with warrants and other papers authorizing them to search his home and vehicle for devices and documents. And this is amazingly hilarious. A letter addressed to Winstanley from the Counterterrorism Command of the Metropolitan Police indicates that the authorities are, quote, aware of your profession as a journalist, but that notwithstanding, police are investigating possible offenses under Section 1 and 2 of the Terrorism Act. These provisions set out the purported offense of encouragement of terrorism. Basically, if you report accurately against genocide, you are encouraging terrorism, apparently. An officer conducting Thursday's raid informed Winstanley that the investigation was connected with the journalist's social media posts. So you're not allowed to post things against genocide on your social media if you're in the UK. Although his devices were seized, Winstanley was not arrested and has not been charged with anything, but they stole all of his devices, which, of course, not only is it crazy invasion of privacy, but it also means he can't very well operate unless he quickly replaces his computers and phones and everything. The vaguely worded provisions relating to the encouragement of terrorism would clearly violate the First Amendment. This quote is coming from this is from the article. Would clearly violate the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, guaranteeing freedom of press. However, the UK lacks similar constitutional protections for freedom of expression. Of course, the US just ignores ours. Human Rights Watch has called the British government to repeal the provision of the Terrorism Act, noting that the definition of encouragement of terrorism is overly broad, raising serious concerns about undue infringement of freedom of speech.
I mean, it's supposed to be.
It's absolutely supposed to be, so that they can arrest you for whatever they want. Britain's Crown Prosecution Service, basically the prosecutor of the government, issued a warning to the public saying, think before you post. Basically, we can arrest you for posting things, so be ready for that. I mean, it is just it's straight up dystopian fascism. Oh, you posted something against genocide. We might arrest you for now. We'll just steal all your devices. With Richard Medhurst, they put him in a prison cell for 24 hours with very little food or anything.
Yeah, I mean, the UK is really really bounding towards fascism.
Yeah, they're diving towards it. In the U.S., you have the raid similar to this one. You have the raid of Scott Ritter, where they didn't arrest him or charge him. They just stole all his devices and basically made it clear to him. And that was in the U.S. by the FBI. Just made it clear to him that, we're on the cusp of arresting you.
And what was their reasoning? Was it an anti-terrorism thing?
No, it was foreign agent registry. They feel that he's being directed what to say by Russia. Which is, of course, laughable. And then you also have, the trial of the Uhuru 3 that's going on. Actually, since I accidentally gave myself a segue to that, let me bring that up real quick. So the Uhuru 3, most of they're in the United States. They have a movement for socialism and other rights and equality. They're pro-peace, anti-war, and for that they were arrested and raided, and 3 of them were on trial. And the end of the trial was that they were found not guilty of being foreign agents with Russia. So great, they won. But then somehow the jury found them guilty of conspiring to be foreign agents with Russia. So it makes no sense, but it still means that if they were to be sentenced under that second one, that they could spend years in prison. So right now, and I never promote online petitions and things, except this is different. This is not a petition. There's a letter writing campaign to the judge about the sentencing. And this actually can have an impact because this is just a few hundred letters arrive to a judge saying that these people are legit and that they stand up for what's right. Actually can have an impact. It's very different than those dumb online positions you see.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, they're fucking stupid.
I agree.
I've always my comment on those is, when was the last time you saw one of our Congress people go, I was going to vote to send javelins, missiles to Ukraine, and I got the 10,000 petition signatures, and that didn't do it. But when we hit 10,001, I said, you know what? I can't do it. Petition. I think maybe there was a time where certain Congress people, first of all, were less corrupt, but furthermore, they didn't get a lot of letters. Like, it'd be letters back then, and they didn't get a lot of letters. So when their office flooded with letters, it had some kind of little impact. Now, zero. Now you're handing them. You hand them a thumb drive and say they're all signed on there.
No, I mean, but they still like. I've done it a couple of times. Like, I've gone to Congress and they've got like these huge boxes of the signed petitions, right? And it's like, thousands and thousands, and you deliver them to the senator, the Congress member's office.
But the box is often fake. They're just a prop.
I know, but you deliver them, and the person standing there who's like just some aide that's like, 22, and it's like, I don't know.
All Congress people have aides. I think you should know that. They all do. They all do.
And they're like, I'm gonna throw away whatever you're handing me, and then I'm gonna go to lunch. Like, they don't fucking care. Like, they don't. And it's just, don't spend any amount of your life signing petitions.
So this is different than a petition, and let me just tell you about it real quick. Basically, they give you the guidelines on their site. I'm going to give you the address in a second, and you can send letters to this judge, Judge William Jung, U.S. District Court, Middle District of Florida. But you can also do it online. It appears there are online forums to submit letters. I don't know whether the physical ones are more influential or not, but so there's 3 people, obviously, that this involves, the Uhuru 3, and you can go there and do it. And they actually say, don't mention that they're guilty or innocent, because that's not up to you. That's up to the jury. So you can't say, oh, no, they're innocent. What you can do is talk about how these people are legit and awesome and do important things and et cetera, like that. So anyway, I'm putting the website in the chat, and I'll put it on the screen here. And for those of you listening to the podcast, it is handsoffyuhuru.org/letters.
Uhuru is spelled UHURU.
So just keep inserting U's wherever you think there isn't one, add another. handsoffyuhuru.org/letters. And it has all the instructions. And honestly, like, you could do it all in like 2 minutes probably. So I think that could have an influence. Could be a far better use of time than a petition. Okay, let's get to this post about where our money's going.
So
where U.S. money is going.
For folks who know this show, you know that and
by the way, thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for the super chats, everything. You guys rock. Okay.
One of my favorite things to do, besides drinking hot chocolate, is connecting issues.
She just has a funnel going. It's really kind of gross.
Is connecting issues. And I think it's really important to recognize that things like what's happening in Gaza and the aftermath of the hurricane in Appalachia are inextricably linked. And I really appreciate this post that the Palestinian Youth Movement put up. And there have been a lot of posts similar to this, but I really appreciate how this one is laid out. If you want to bring that up. So basically, it says divest from death abroad and invest in life at home.
Could Instagram make the image a little smaller on the screen? That'd be awesome.
Lee, for those who don't know, Lee loves
Instagram. Oh, they know.
Oh, sorry. Okay, next. Or not. In less than 3 weeks, 2 storms have devastated the Southeast, predominantly, like Florida and then Western North Carolina. Tens of billions of dollars in damage estimated, and that's we don't know yet even how much. And some of these communities, particularly in Western North Carolina and again in Appalachia, as I mentioned, that which is Western North Carolina, but they are not able to like the roads are gone. So people are bringing things in, like backpackers are bringing things in when helicopters have somewhere to land, but there's a lot of tree cover, so they oftentimes don't. When there is somewhere to land, helicopters are able to bring supplies in, but there are no roads. They are isolated. So these people in these communities have neither escape nor do they have enough supplies coming in.
It's kind of amazing this isn't getting more coverage in the United States.
I mean, is it though?
What amazing? That's not.
Like, I mean, are you surprised? Are you at all shocked or surprised or?
I mean, I'm not shocked by mainstream media. I just mean there was a time that even the mainstream media would cover, like, totally cut off people in the United States for weeks on end from a hurricane. I feel like there was a time.
I don't remember that time, but that doesn't mean it didn't exist. I just have no idea. So the Biden-Harris administration approved $441 million in direct assistance. Now that sounds like a lot when you say it out loud. You're like, wow, $400 million. Until you realize that we're over $20 billion spent on weapons to Israel in the past year.
I think 22 billion. Yeah.
Sorry,
the part you forgot as a rounding error is 4 times the amount they've sent to help on this. And
right. I mean, I don't even know how much, what percentage of 22 billion is 441 million. I don't even know.
0.5 maybe.
It's just a dumb amount. It's a ridiculous amount. And it averages out to about $750 per person who can access it. Now, let me ask you this. Riddle me this, oh mathematicians of Common Censored. If your entire life has been destroyed, if your home is gone, if you have no you have no way of going to work, of if you even have a job anymore, you have people to feed, you need basic things, whether that be food or things to stay warm to survive as things get colder and colder in the Appalachia. I mean, Appalachia is a very mountainous region. What the fuck? It's 750 is a slap in the face. It is an absurd, it is a total fuck you to the people of this country that are desperate and literally dying because they don't have access to basic needs after these hurricanes devastated their homes. So, and at the same time that they announced this, basically FEMA announced that they had about a $7 or $8 billion deficit to adequately address the destruction happening that had happened after these 2 hurricanes. And around the same time, $8 billion was promised to Israel. So, I mean, we can't separate these issues even if we want to, because the numbers are staring us in the face. It's like people in this country are desperate to try and gather the mosaic pieces of their destroyed lives, while the US is like, we're not going to give FEMA that $8 billion. That should really go to Israel's genocide.
And if you're wondering how much the 440 million is of a year of our military budget, it's 0.00044 of our military budget.
Wow. Okay. In just 8 days, FEMA spent half of the disaster relief budget allocated by Congress for the entirety of the next year.
And Donald Trump's helpful. He's blaming it on immigrants.
Well, that's... But, okay, so in 8 days, and this is at a time in which you realize, if you have half a brain, that these hurricanes are going to get worse and worse because climate change. So if FEMA only has enough to operate for 8 days out of an entire year, or basically 16, because let's say, you know, they spent half of their disaster relief money in 8 days, so 16 they spend their entire budget. What the fuck? Yeah, you're fucked. You are absolutely without hope when it comes to the government assistance, which is why, of course, mutual aid is so important. But I also want to bring this up because I think it's important to recognize where, hey,
Thank you.
damn, that's some fancy hot chocolate. Thank you.
Thank you, TF, for the donation, for the big donation for hot chocolate. Apparently,
it's mine.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to recognize that this right here, this is where the America First shit comes from. Okay, it's Democrats in power that continuously do nothing for these southeastern areas where a lot of poor white folks live. And I'm not discounting that non-white people vote for Republicans, but these people look at what a Biden administration or a Harris administration would do for them, and they go, well, forget you then. Why would I give you my vote when you just told me to go F myself as I'm looking at the ruins of my home and my community?
Yeah. And
so this is where this comes from. And I'm not saying that I agree with the analysis. Obviously, I don't. But I think we have to understand the context, just like with, you know, any kind of context. We have to understand where this comes from. And this is where that populist right-wing America First, you know, for like, forget immigrants, forget everybody else. That's where that comes from.
Yeah, and I showed yesterday, MSNBC was showing, and they were astonished that the support for Kamala Harris has decreased. The support for the Democratic Party has decreased over the years. Like, there used to be a lot more in the Black community. There used to be a lot more Black community support for Obama and Hillary, and it just keeps going down every year. And MSNBC was astonished by this. Apparently, doing absolutely nothing for your constituents causes them to not vote for you as much. What?
Yeah.
Shocking.
And I think that, you know, this is, and they actually have a picture in here that's from Hurricane Katrina, which, gosh, we're like almost at the 20th anniversary of that, which is bananas, which was a hurricane that devastated New Orleans in 2005. And this woman is holding a sign that says, "No Iraqis ever left me on a roof to die." And what happened was, because the floodwaters were so high, people were on their roofs and they were writing messages, "Help me," on the roofs of New Orleans. And many people were left there to die.
Yep.
And so, I mean, her sign is very dark, but it's very true. It's like, what the hell are we doing sending money and resources to the Middle East when people need it here? And not, again, making this connection, a few days after the hurricane hit, and Eastern Tennessee which is right next to Western North Carolina, geography tip, was totally devastated, is totally devastated. The government sent, I don't know how many, but Tennessee National Guard troops to Israel. Not to the disaster areas of Tennessee, where the Tennessee National Guard should be going, because the National Guard is supposed to respond in disaster situations. No, they went to Israel. What in the shit is the Tennessee National Guard doing in Israel? That's a rhetorical question. But I like, these connections are right there. And so it's not even about making them, it's just visualizing them, it's seeing them, it's uncovering them.
And you know, I always like to get to the kind of root issue of a lot of these things, and you brought up, and kind of the main point here is, why do these, you know, the ruling elite, the tops of our systems, why do they send so much money, so much effort over to Israel to commit genocide while doing absolutely nothing for the people here, whether it be the people in North Carolina or Katrina or whatever? And the answer, if you dig deep enough, is that what's going on in Israel, the genocide in Israel, and Israel continuing as a state, as an oppressive state, facilitates the U.S. empire. It doesn't actually matter whether someone drowns or dies on a roof for the U.S. empire. Yeah. So at the heart of it, this comes down to, the money and the weapons and the effort, the energy is being shipped to wherever it plays a role in U.S. hegemony and facilitating Israel's crushing of Palestinians and attacks against Iran and Lebanon. That facilitates U.S. empire. Helping people in North Carolina does not. It doesn't matter. And it further matters that the ruling elite own both parties so that they don't even have to worry about the votes. Like, because the votes aren't going to change. They might change certain things here and there, local, etc. But they're not going to change whether the U.S. sends bombs to Israel. They're not going to change whether the U.S. Commits, assassinations and coups around the world. All of that stays the same. So they don't even have to worry about votes.
No.
Thank you, Teresa, for the donation. Solidarity. Thanks for helping support the show. Oh, what we don't have listed here is how people can donate to your collection you're doing.
Can I send that email to you real quick?
Can I just search your name? Right here?
Oh, yeah, you can do that.
There we go. That was much quicker. Even though I
didn't know you knew how to search for things on Instagram.
Don't. I clicked the magnifying glass. I don't know. Okay, since the writing's kind of small, you're gonna have to explain it.
Okay, so for folks who have not, you might have seen it or heard it on this show because we played a clip of my interview with Dr. Khalil Khalidi, who's an orthopedic doctor in Gaza and Deir al-Balah. But I've started raising funds for him, and so far we've raised about $900. And we'd like to continue to raise more. I'd like to try to get this to be like an ongoing fundraiser.
Oh yeah, and we played a clip. You said this. We played a clip on the show, so those of you who are regular watchers might remember the clip of him in Gaza.
If you haven't, then you can go to projectcensor.org, and it's on the radio show tab. My full interview with Khalil, trigger or content warning for sure, because somebody describing genocide is not going to be light and airy. But one of the things that he talks about is that the few supplies that do get in, that Israel allows in to this part of Gaza, are extremely expensive. So like a tomato could cost $30. And so what that means is that a people who were already extremely impoverished to begin with don't have money to buy food that they need to not starve. And so it becomes like the level of sadism and terrorism at play here by Israel is like, it continues to be, to one up itself. And so basically this money would go to the doctors in Gaza, to Khalil and his colleagues, to try and get them basic supplies and food that they need for themselves and their community, because the doctors are really, I mean, they're holding things together in so many ways, but they're literally, and this is not like hyperbole, they're doing their best to keep an entire culture alive, and saving a culture from genocide. And so whatever you can do to donate would be really appreciated.
So hold on. If you can keep talking, I'm going to try and type this on the screen. So it's just Eleanor Goldfield. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically it's going through me. I have just for transparency, of course, I have a list of all the donations, and I'm happy to share that with folks, and I'm going to be tallying it and making posts about it so folks can follow that as well. But it's I won't go into detail about that aspect of it, but it is difficult to get money there. And so you can PayPal me, or you can Venmo me. Venmo at Art Killing Apathy, if that's easier. If neither one of those works for you, you can reach out to me on my socials and ask about it.
So for those of you listening to the podcast, the PayPal is paypal.me/Eleanor Goldfield, and put in the note that's what it's for.
Just put doctors for doctors or something.
Yeah,
but
if you put doctors, Gaza doctors.
Don't
put Gaza.
Don't put Gaza.
Just
don't put Gaza, and don't put Palestine.
Just put doctors.
Yeah.
You said that like I can't even say it. It's fine. It's fine to say it. Just don't put it in the comments.
Don't write it.
Don't write it. You're like, oh, never mind. It's all lost. Give up. We're leaving.
I
It's
didn't.
over. PayPal.me/Eleanor Goldfield. Okay. I wanted to get to this one real quick because I brought you the clip the other day of Ta-Nehisi Coates. And, those of you maybe more or less informed on Ta-Nehisi Coates, great writer, did an amazing thing about racism in America that put him on the map. Amazing book. And then his second book, for some odd reason, was basically just defending Obama and and really upset a lot of people. Like, oh, okay, you don't actually understand how the system works. And I think he and Cornel West got into it on Twitter several years ago. But anyway, he's now back with another book that is a lot about the Palestinian cause, and basically all of the leftists who thought he might actually be valuable in terms of getting messages out are now coming back to realize, well, he's valuable again. And this means that he's being mercilessly attacked by the right wing and the pro-Israel people and the pro-genocide and the Bill Maher's and the Dr. Phil's of the world. And they're charging that his book, which is, I haven't read it, but it's a short book that apparently is very powerful about the Palestinian cause. And he talks about the similarities to other apartheid, Jim Crow, etc. And the critics are charging he didn't spend enough time in Palestine to learn the truth because he was only there for 10 days. And this is from Mondo. Is Mondo Weiss or Mondo Weiss?
I think people here say Mondo Weiss.
Well, I didn't hear what she said. You went in the middle.
That's what I'm saying.
Mondo Weiss. The pro-Israel media forces, this is from them, the pro-Israel media forces are panicking at the stunning success of Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, The Message. Coates is rising on the bestseller lists and appearing on major television and radio. Israel's defenders are flailing about, looking for ways to discredit him. So the biggest one is that 10 days in Palestine doesn't educate you on something. But this article points out most of us alive today spent 0 days in the legally segregated American South before the civil rights movement brought a measure of justice, but that doesn't prevent us from having strong and accurate opinions about it.
Oh, that's a really good argument.
Most of us spent 0 days in slavery or even witnessing slavery, but I got some opinions on it.
That's really good. Or like apartheid South Africa. I'm going to use that. That's a brilliant. Who wrote that article?
I'll tell you in a minute. I don't want to scroll away.
Oh,
I'm mid scroll here. Next, Coates did not rely exclusively on his own visit. He, get this, did other research. What?
That's a thing you can do?
Here's another thing. I have spent 0 days in Palestine.
Yeah.
I have a strong opinion on it.
That's not true. I thought you...
I wasn't in Palestine.
It's all Palestine.
You know what I mean. I wasn't in what Israel considers Palestine. Okay. I've been to Israel twice as a teenager and a young 20-year-old, but never to Gaza or the West Bank is my point.
Was Ta-Nehisi Coates in Gaza?
I think West Bank.
Okay.
His book ends with notes and sources and shows a range of books and articles that he pored over. What? He read things and educated himself. I mean, the argument against him is so stupid. Anyway, this article, I'll just wrap up with this here. It closes with the closing paragraph of either his book or that chapter of his book. He closes his remarkable book with a strong and accurate indictment of U.S. media coverage of Israel-Palestine. He says he feels betrayed by his colleagues in journalism. He says, quote, an inhuman system demands inhumans. And so it produces them in stories, editorials, newscasts, movies, and television. Mm-hmm. Editors and writers like to think that they are not part of such subsystems, that they are independent, objective, and arrive at their conclusions solely by dint of their reporting and research. But the Palestine I saw bore so little likeness to the stories I read and so much resemblance to the systems I've known that I am left believing that at least here, this objectivity is self-delusion. The result is an effort to forge a story told solely by the colonizer, an effort that extends to the prescribing of boycotts by American states, the revocation of articles by journals, the dismissal of news anchors by skittish networks, the shooting of journalists by army snipers. So
I think what I think what the people arguing that he didn't spend enough time are really saying is, you didn't spend time where the IDF told you where you could go and guided you around.
Yeah.
just like when, like the New York Times has a Jerusalem office, like when they get shown around or when they get shown things, yeah, it's certainly not Palestinians who get to show them around. It's the IDF.
Yeah, Dr. Phil just went on an IDF led tour, and he said genocide is fine. They told me it's great. He really is a remarkably disgusting human being. But anyway, Tyler, thank you for the donation. That's awesome. Thanks for the solidarity. He says to organize the organizing.
It takes a lot of organizing.
It does.
Thank you.
Does to organize the organizing. Okay, so let's get to, and this might be our last story, but let's get to how big oil is steering. Is that the one you want to do first, or?
I wanted to do this one, the 7 nuclear
Okay,
reactors.
let's do this
We
one.
can end that with that one.
Let's do this one.
Not ending on a high note, but
We never end on a positive note.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes you end with a little bit of hope. I don't.
We're kicking ass, everybody. You got this. You got this. Okay, go ahead.
So Google, everyone's favorite supporter of genocide,
I'm unfamiliar. What is this? What's Google?
has announced that in order to power their AI, they will build 7 nuclear reactors.
not build, but they're gonna suck off energy of 700. Sorry,
700.
700 of 7 nuclear generators.
Yeah. So basically so they're not building them. I thought that they needed new ones.
They signed a deal with nuclear energy startup Keros Power to purchase 500 megawatts of the new 24/7 carbon-free power from 7 of the company's small modular reactors.
Yeah, so they're not there yet.
But
the companies are reportedly looking at an initial delivery in 2030.
So you're saying because they're paying a company that is building these, basically they're building them. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, because the company wouldn't need to if supply and demand. That's the first the first lesson of economics.
And speaking of supply and demand, the AI type of training, which is this crazy energy suck, it's an unbelievable amount of energy that this AI sucks up.
Yeah, well, and they say as much in that article if you go back to it, so I can read it.
You know what? I don't need the attitude. Okay,
but you get it for free.
Missy,
the grid needs new electricity sources to support AI technologies that are this is funny, that are powering major scientific advances and not at all having high school kids write their term papers or ask people to find pictures of a woman having sex with a banana. This agreement helps accelerate a new technology to meet energy needs cleanly and reliably. I'm sorry.
Couldn't get through the
cleanly and reliably. Methinks this person has never seen the fallout of Fukushima or Chernobyl or read about the various times that the US has almost had a similar Fukushima happen, because we've got like 24 reactors that are about the same model and age as Fukushima, so they're not a ticking time bomb. I mean, this is horrendous. And if you look at the West, the Western United States, where people are still dealing with the extreme radiation poisoning thanks to uranium mining that is starting up again thanks to penis wrinkles like Google, who want to use nuclear reactors, it is a horrific devastation for the communities there, which, guess what, are indigenous. I wonder if that's by accident. Radiation poisoning that causes, levels of cancer that are far higher than they are in other communities in the United States. Devastation to the environment, obviously, the air, and I mean, like, this is it's absolutely absurd to talk about this, and just like a bald-faced lie to talk about this like it's clean and reliable, because I think everyone at Fukushima could tell you that shit's not reliable. And it's kind of like talking about fracking, like, oh, it's clean compared to oil. No, it's not. These are horrific forms of energy that you're using to power something that basically we don't need. We don't need it. And while I'm on the topic, It is used. AI, like anything that we create as the gods of these technologies, will be made in our own image, right? Our racist, patriarchal, capitalist, colonialist, imperialist
There are
image.
non-racists out there.
Yeah, but we're not building AI.
Okay, that's the point. So when you say made in our image, you mean made in the image of the ruling elite. It's made in the image of those who control
I
know those control the systems. So I was going to say part of that. I was going to say that AI has a crazy potential to actually help humanity if it were controlled and planned by people looking for peace, equality, free energy, all those things, sustainability. It could be a game changer. But as long as it's controlled by the top of the systems, by the richest, biggest sociopaths out there, you will end up with sociopathic AI systems that don't care about humanity and just facilitate the richest of the rich to get richer. So,
yeah, that was my point. But I mean, let's say that AI was all the things that you're talking about, that it's just like a wonderful thing and we all love it and it's making everyone's lives easier and giving everyone a free like ass massage. Like, even if that were the case, you still shouldn't be using nuclear power to power it, you absolute fucking psychopaths. This is not going to end or even start well. Because like I said, the uranium mining that's needed to power these endeavors is already causing and has caused mass destruction in the Western United States. So
that's called externalities. Those don't matter. Okay. I need you to understand that those people don't matter. Those places don't matter. Clear. Those animals don't matter.
One of these uranium pit mines, by the way, which is like the largest uranium pit mine in the United States, is right next to the Grand Canyon. So just in case you thought that like the US even cared a little bit about its like national parks, even, no, that's not a thing.
Thank you again, TF, for another donation. Heavy donations today. Thank you, TF. Everyone. Really cool. Says in memory of Donella Meadows, thinking in systems, we live in a negative feedback loop. Yes, but Peter Joseph talks a lot about negative feedback loops. Okay, we're going to wrap up here, but do you want to promote your awesome things first, or should I promote my awesome things first?
Do you have anything in mind, or?
For me or you?
Yes, me.
For me or you? Yes. You can talk about Project Censored or whatever you want. But
okay,
anyway.
I wasn't sure if you had something in mind. Yes, so you can find because oftentimes when you say that, you're like, oh yeah, the thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, the thing that I'm doing.
You're like, I don't do. I just what?
No, it's often that I've got so much shit going on that I'm like, oh, what do you want me to talk about? Okay, just wind me up and give me something to talk about. So I do most of my work with Project Censored. You can check that out at projectcensored.org, including the interview that I did with Dr. Khalil Khalidi in Gaza. Just go to projectcensored.org, click on the radio show tab, and you'll find that there. And everything else is at artkillingapathy.com because I can't think of anything else right now.
And I am excited about my new podcast that a lot of people have really liked, which is all my comedy stuff. 3 episodes are already up. It's called Just Comedy. To find it, you got to probably search Just Comedy with Lee Camp. And I have decided to get greedy about the number of ratings that it has so far. On Spotify, it's on various platforms, but on Spotify, it's 67 ratings, even though it's only been up a few days. And I've decided to shoot for 100. So if you guys feel like helping me out and rating the podcast, you can do that. You can find it on your Spotify app. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. It's got 21 ratings there. Maybe we'll shoot for 50 over on Apple Podcasts. But a lot of people like this because it's kind of like, well, you really want the comedy. Like you listen to 5 podcasts that tell you about the genocide, and now you need some laughs. So, yeah, I hope you'll check out Just Comedy.
You can just search Just Comedy, by the way,
on Spotify.
Yeah, it comes up immediately.
Well, so that might be true on your Spotify on your laptop. It might not be true on your phone, but I don't know. Give it a different tries.
You kids and your newfangled devices.
Anyway, you got to click the little star thing to give it a rating. I also hope you click the bell icon so you get alerted to new episodes. Another new episode should come out in a few days. And yeah, check it out. I will be back. I do these Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So I'll be back next week. You just got to show up. I mean, click subscribe, but you got to show up because they're not going to get alerted. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.